you clicked on the thumbnail for this video, chances are you've had a hard drive failure or a project get corrupted, or you just couldn't find something in your DAW filing system. Today I'm going to show you how to protect yourself against hard drive failure and what to do when projects get corrupted, as well as how to manage your filing system so that you can find things even years later for your audio projects. I've seen grown men cry when they lose the hours and hours of work that it takes to make those perfect takes. Yeah, okay, I cried a little when that happened. And even worse yet, when you lose something for a client. I'm Paul Smith, and the threats to your work start off with hard drive failure. All hard drives fail. There's death, there's taxes, and hard drive failure. It will happen. If you're the kind of person that when you see the gas light come on in your vehicle, you keep driving for a half hour because you're pretty sure you'll make it, that is the kind of risk-taking behavior you need to be a great musician, and I love it. Don't do this with your hard drives. Don't risk anything. It's going to fail. The second threat to your work is your DAW itself and the project file that it creates. So a DAW doesn't actually record or have any audio stored in it. What it does is you take the WAV files that you've recorded for all of your instruments, and it tells your computer when to play which file where and what parts of them as you're like layering takes and that kind of thing. It's an organizational tool for all of the WAV files, and when it gets corrupted, it no longer knows where all the WAV files go, and it would take more time to recreate that with audio files than it would just be to record everything over. So when that project file gets corrupted, you're done. The third threat to our audio work is you, the operator. Are you the kind of person that labels your files final version, final version, really, the final version, and then, oh crap, here's another final version? If that's your file naming scheme and you need to come back years later, you're not going to be able to know what's what or find anything, and you'll lose your work because of you. Here's what I do in my studio to protect myself against hard drive failure. I have an SSD drive that I work off of, and it's only, I think, 1 terabyte, something like that, because they're pretty expensive drives. So I have my current files that I'm recording, working on that. Then I buy backups in 2s, and I just buy the cheap Costco Western Digital, I think. They're 4 terabytes. They're dirt cheap, about $100. Then what I do is I pull the files off of that into my SSD drive, and I work on them, and then I put them back on these backup drives. And I label them on the outside with console tape. I label what they're for, so whether they're for the studio, because I have a bunch of other ones that I use for video. And so then I have what it's for, then the year, and then the month. And I put the year and the month on it. There's a couple of reasons. One is I don't use a hard drive longer than 2 years. After that, you're just risking things. This is like the gas tank where the gas light's on. After 2 years, your hard drive is probably going to fail. So retire it immediately. And the other reason is that if you have multiple hard drives plugged into your computer, you can safely eject, because you'll have the electronic part of the hard drive labeled the same so that it comes up on your desktop where it shows what it's for, the year and the month. When you eject that, you can look at your hard drives that are plugged into your computer and safely unplug it, and you know which one is which. Then the other thing is that if I notice any problem whatsoever, so I plug in a hard drive and it's not recognized, and then all of a sudden it starts working, or if it looks at me funny or anything happens, I retire the hard drive immediately because it will become problematic. That doesn't happen a whole lot, but about once a year I get a hard drive that I just start to not feel right about. I retire it right away. The next thing that we have to protect ourselves against is our DAW itself and the project file that it creates. Those often become corrupted because we all know that computers work exactly as intended and they're flawless. Yeah, right. So I don't trust these project files at all. Because remember, the project file just organizes and tells your computer when to play which WAV file. You'll never be able to put them back together. So what I do is I create my original project file, and then I save a copy of it, and then when I record something or I open it up on a new day, I save it as, and then I make a new file for that day. If I'm recording 2 things in one day, let's say, for example, I'm recording vocals and guitars, I'll open up my file, I'll save it as a new one, record the vocals, save that, and then save it as another project file for when I'm doing the guitars. This way, if it becomes corrupted, then I have this latest version. If I'm recording the guitar solos, I've only lost the guitar solos. I can go back to the one where I recorded vocals, open it up, save it as a new one, and we can redo the guitars. It's a bit of a pain, but it's not like losing everything. That's the first thing that we have to protect against with our project files. But the second thing is to future-proof them. So I'm right now using Logic Pro X, but in 10, 20 years from now, I'm going to be using Logic 232 or some other DAW entirely. And it may not open the old files if I'm using the same DAW, or I might not have the same plugins. There's a whole host of reasons that it's going to have problems opening up. So after I have all of my raw tracks recorded, then I render each track out so that they become a separate file that starts at the same time. This is exactly how you'd export files if you were sending them to somebody else to mix. Then I have those and they're safe, and I can put them in any DAW in any future situation. The next thing that we have to protect our studios against for our workflow is ourselves and our own disorganization. And in my studio, we have multiple engineers often working on the same projects when nobody else is around, so we have to be able to open up each other's files and know what the heck is going on. So I'm crazy militant with our file naming scheme here. So what we do is if we're working on a current file, it's on the SSD drive, and we have each client name in a file. Within that file, we put each song that they're working on and a pre-production folder, as well as then a masters folder. So then within each song, Logic creates a bunch of files like the bounces and all those other things, but it has the project name and the project file. So we label our project file with the song name and then the date. And the date is in this order. It's year, month, day. And then we put any descriptor, we leave a space and put any descriptor we want, whether it's, tracking drums, for example. Then, if I go in the next day and we're recording bass and guitars, what I can do is I open up the old project file and I save it with today's date, and then if I add my descriptors, this new file is going to fall to the bottom because of the alphabetizing in my system. The latest date is going to go to the bottom, so my newest file is always on the bottom. Now, if I save multiple files on the same day with the same date, all we do is song name, year, month, day, .1, .2, .3, and they'll always fall to the bottom, so I know what my latest thing is. And then the descriptors, we can say, oh, okay, this is where we edited guitars, if we need to go back to that. And so we can find things really, really easy and reliably. The next issue is file responsibility after you're done a project. So if I'm working on a project for a client, I get them to bring in 2 hard drives at the end of the project that are clean, that we can just transfer everything that we have over to their hard drives. And then they're responsible for them going on into the future. And I let them know they're responsible to, every 2 years, put them onto new hard drives, that they always have them. And that's the responsibility of the musician, to curate the catalog that you create over the years. And having access, some engineers get really freaked out by other people having access to all their mix files and all that kind of thing. To me, it doesn't really bother me. It bothers me if somebody takes responsibility for work that I did, but that's another issue. But if somebody else sees my plugin settings and how I treated certain things, I don't really care, because I was hired for my ear, not which plugins I use. I've incorporated these systems over years of learning everything the hard way, and believe me, I have learned each one of these lessons the absolute hardest way possible. And but I'm very thankful whenever I need to go back and find something or open something up or something becomes corrupted. And it's been years since I've had a catastrophic loss of any information, so I'm starting to feel really good about this system. I really hope you got some value out of this, and please like and subscribe. That really does help the channel. I hope you never ever lose a file ever again in your life, and we've all lost some of them. And I have a cool PDF that I've released on my website called The 5 Pieces of Gear You Won't Regret Buying. Click the link in the description to find it. Thanks so much.